Well, thank you very much. What a wonderful introduction. As mentioned, my name is Richard Sampson-Genet. I'm the Managing Director and CEO of Starman Webster in Australia, and it's my great pleasure to announce my panellists, fellow panellists for the discussion, TJ Venter, Chen Yushu, Mbugu Ngugi, Thomas Nottebohm, and Jose Eduardo Camargo.
Should be. I moved over.
So thank you very much for staying for the Diva event as introduced. We were thinking the graveyard shift, but I'm delighted to see so many in the audience tonight, and we hope that you'll find we've saved the best till last with our Macadamia Roundtable this afternoon. So there's the panel. And our agenda for today, we're going to cover four broad areas. We'll start by reviewing the statistics, and then we'll look at, in some more depth, at the factors influencing supply of macadamias globally. We'll look at some of the demand and consumption factors, and then some promotional initiatives that the industry is undertaking. So first off, we'll review the nut in shell statistics as presented by the INC, and a quick run through of the change in production from season 2024 to what is anticipated in 2025. And what you can see is an increase overall in world crop from 324,000 tonnes to 343,000 tonnes, rather modest increase that I calculated at about 5.8% year on year. So we might just run down that list and have a quick comment on the factors affecting each of those national crops, and start with you, PJ, if you'd like to make a brief comment on South Africa.
Oh, Richard, thank you. At the moment, as you can see, we the king of the crop there. We're showing steady growth going forward, definitely growing forward for the foreseeable future. I think the only thing that's changed is around about up to a year ago, we were still looking at double-digit growth. We were projecting that, and I think we've gone down to high single-figure growth now, projected going forward.
Thanks, PJ. And do you have some comment on China, Ms. Chen?
Yes, thank you, Richard. So, as we know, in China, macadamia plantation is the biggest in the world. So, in China, it's about 356,000 metric ton hectares. So, actually, production in 2024 is around 89,500 metric tons at 3.5% moisture nut in shell in China. So, for 2025, we forecast the production about maybe above 100,000 metric tons.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I might just flick to the next slide then to make an explanation of those numbers that you just quoted. So we in our conversation before this meeting, we discussed the fact that the Chinese industry projections are done on a different basis to the INC numbers. So I think that the audience is probably familiar with hearing some surprisingly large numbers reported out of China. But this is a useful slide that you shared with us to explain that the Chinese industry numbers are based on this high-level observation of management skill, varieties, planting period, planting volume, and weather conditions, and it's really a very high-level understanding of the productive capacity of the orchards, and it doesn't actually seek to measure the harvested quantity and the amount of goods that flow into the supply chain, into the tradable supply. So, hence we have a lower number in our estimation of the tradable quantity of goods compared to the farm-based estimate. So, thank you for explaining that. And Mbugu, any comments from Kenya?
Yeah, I think there's been a steady growth. It's not too large right now. Pre-COVID, we had a lot of plantings because the pricing was good, and there's obviously a linear correlation between the price of macadamias in the market and plantings. Although in Kenya it takes a few years more than most places because the husbandry practices with the small-scale farmers are not as comprehensive. But we should see a larger jump in the next 3 to 5 years with all of those coming into production very shortly.
Yeah. Thank you. Thomas, comments from Guatemala?
Yes, so Guatemala, over the past couple of years, we've seen a decline in production. I mean, we kind of peaked at about 16,000 tons. But given the El Nino effect, also low prices, a lot of farmers kind of abandoned their farms, and that kind of led to lack of pruning, lack of fertilizer, and also access to labor. And so a lot of the labor force has been kind of migrating up to the United States, and so finding that labor makes it very challenging. And so this year, we're figuring it's probably going to go up about 20 to 30% because we've had a little bit better weather, and we'll hopefully come back up to where we should be in the coming years.
Thank you. And I think you have some contact with the Hawaiian industry, which
Yeah,
looks
so
to be...
in Hawaii, you see a lot of those trees in Hawaii are much older, and so you don't necessarily see a lot of the new plantings going on. So that's going to be a very steady, stable production. It is challenging to grow macadamias in Hawaii with labor costs and high replacement costs as well. So I think you're going to see very stable production going forward.
Yeah. And Eduardo, in Brazil, you've had a tough couple of years, I believe.
Yeah, we have 8 good years growing till we had a strong drought and a warming temperature. And besides, with the low price, some people left the business. But there are another people coming, and the provision for the next year is begin again to recover the production. And we have some also, as Brazil has a lot of commodity like sugarcane, who had a good price. It has a concurrence with sugarcane, for example, in our area.
Mm-hmm.
But we are still believing and going on for the future.
Yeah. So you've had two tough years with drought, and maybe that seems to be breaking now. But yeah, there's some movement in and out of the industry as well with other crops that are in competition.
Yes.
Yeah. So in Australia, I should say the growth as reported in the chart is modest. There are a lot of young trees coming into bear, particularly in the northern growing regions in Queensland. But at the same time, we're observing some drop-off in production in New South Wales in the older producing areas. It's been another wet year in Australia at the start of the season this year. There was some impact to the pollination late last year and some disruption to the harvest early in the season this year. We had an extremely wet March, which just delayed the harvest. Hopefully just delayed it, but maybe taken the edge off the crop just a wee bit as well. So not a very strong growth number in Australia this year. We'll just flick through there to the kernel equivalent production numbers for your reference. So that indicates a total of 96,000 tonnes of total kernel equivalent available. Obviously, that includes a very large amount of product that's sold as nut in shell, so it certainly doesn't turn into kernel, but that's the kernel equivalent number. Just like to come back now to a bit more of a discussion in terms of some of the structural issues that are affecting the industries, the various growing regions that we see having an impact on production, positive or negative, over the medium term. Thomas, you and I having a chat the other day about some of the very peculiar factors in Guatemala, which really strike me because they are so particular to your country and your region, and you've got this proximity to the US, and so you've got a flow of people and a flow of cash, and some of those things are affecting what goes on in your industry.
Definitely. I mean, I think right now, over the past couple of years, you've seen a huge migration of people moving to the United States illegally, and they're just sending tons of money back. And so right now, I mean, we're getting to the point where the country is receiving about $2 billion and quickly rising, almost at a 10% monthly. I mean, it's growing at a dramatic pace, and all that money is coming into the country. And so a lot of the people that are living in Guatemala are happy receiving all this money from their family members in the U.S. And so, one, they don't necessarily want to work in the field, and there's also a general trend of people that aren't necessarily wanting to work in agriculture anymore. They're wanting to go more towards the industry. Additionally, you know, agriculture is it's challenging. Macadamias is definitely a challenging product. You're also facing high pressures in cocoa right now, so a couple farmers have said, let me plant cocoa. Maybe I'll do better there, so they take out some max, plant cocoa. Coffee prices this year went historical highs, so now a lot of the farms in Guatemala also have interplanted coffee. And so now they're like, let me pay more attention to my coffee. I forgot about the macadamias, and it's kind of this flip-flopping year over year. Additionally, with all this money that's coming into the country, it's far above any other product that we can export agriculturally. A lot of people are starting to sell their farms and turn them into little plots. And so 95 to almost 100% of the buyers of these farms or small plots within the farm are now from the U.S. So they're selling directly to family members in the U.S. who are making their payments on a monthly basis. And so farmers are starting to look at it from a financial perspective and say, okay, it's better to sell my farm and then do some real estate. But now with the prices that have stabilized and the weather conditions that have stabilized, people are starting to take back the farming practices in macadamias. They're starting to prune, they're starting to fertilize, starting to harvest altogether. And so those things will kind of get us back up to hopefully 16,000 tons within the next couple of years. But it's definitely a challenging product.
So very interesting factors, aren't they? Social, political, economic factors that are influencing the industry there. In terms of your neighbours, Costa Rica...
So Costa Rica used to buy a lot of product from Guatemala, and they would send it over to Costa Rica for processing because there was a processing plant in Costa Rica. Right now that's not kind of existing anymore. Costa Rica, very limited production. Also in Mexico, there's limited production. We've had a couple exchanges with Mexico, which I do think has a great potential. Labor costs are a little bit less expensive there, and the land availability is also great. But that probably is only producing about 500 tons of in-shell, and it's kind of isolated to a couple, you know, medium-sized farms.
Yeah. Thank you. Eduardo, you were talking about South America more broadly. There's a bit of production in Paraguay, maybe a very small industry there.
It could be around 150 to 100 tons. They are wanting to expand. In South America has also Colombia with 1,150 tons and keep growing, not so fast, but it's growing. And they have there is also a little in Ecuador, not too much, around 100 tons. I think it's more like this.
Very small. And we're not seeing any infrastructure being developed in other South American countries, particularly?
More in Colombia.
Some in Colombia, yeah. Okay. Mbugu in Kenya, another fascinating case study. Things moving politically, socially, economically. We were talking the other day about the cost of money being a significant driver, and then your sales mix now with the proclamation on nut in shell. So can you tell us about the factors that are driving the industry there?
Yeah, I think given the way the industry is set up in Kenya, you've got a very heavy grower, smallholder grower presence, and it's really run by the processors who are buying the bulk of that and putting it through their facilities. As I said, post-COVID, lots of liquidity was sucked out of the system. Any reserves through that period were kind of chewed up. Price of money, LIBOR going up right after that. I mean, effective interest rate in Kenya shilling is 16% in Kenya, and on the dollar is about 9%. So, with the increase in tonnage, the only worry that we have is how much of the nuts actually manage to get through the system, given the cycle is 8-month cycle if you're lucky, 10 to 12 months on the regular. from when you actually plug your cash to when you get it back out. And that's posing to be a challenge, and that's just the risk in that respect.
Yeah, so in practical terms, if it's costing you 16% or more to buy the crop, you need to get it through the system pretty quickly.
Yeah, the quicker you do it, the better.
Yeah. And so in-shell exports from Kenya have been banned,
So yeah, over the last 2 years, given post-COVID and the lack of liquidity, in-shell was opened. There was a window in 23 and 24, which saw a large volume go to China. Earlier this year, they closed that off, and we're pretty much going back to a kernel market or kernel processing region. But as I said, we can go back to that, but we'll see how much we can actually get off the ground and through the facilities and out the other side to the market.
Yeah. And in your neighbourhood, there's a little bit of production starting in Uganda, but
Uganda is more aggressive than Tanzania, but in both cases you're seeing Avers and Max going in together, similarly, and a lot of actually Southern African farmers coming up to try and help with that, and also kind of leasing land to do that as new opportunities arise. And there's a big push in Uganda with the government who are giving out seedlings to farmers to try and encourage macadamia production. We're going to go and visit them and just see what kind of quality seedlings they're giving out, just to ensure that the farmers are not stuck 6 years down the road with a tree that's not bearing properly.
Yeah. So PJ, South Africa, tell us, you're leading the pack now, well and truly. What's going on, and what should we expect in the next few years?
Well, Richard, you can definitely expect us to keep going both NIS and kernel way. We've built quite a few big facilities over the last years, and there are ones going up now as well, but obviously the capital needed for that is prohibitive. And then if you look at the other guys in the southern part of Africa, we got Malawi on there at 11,000 tons. You also have Zimbabwe, you got Mozambique, and you got Zambia. Now, Zimbabwe has been in the game quite a while, but unfortunately these countries are quite fragmented far as the macadamia industries are concerned. They don't have associations. Zambia is starting with an association now, and they're the new kids on the block. They've only been planting for a couple of years. Previously, there was only one big farmer. They've done more than 4,000 hectares in the last 6 years, and they expect their crop to be 2,500 tons this year. So they're getting there. Unfortunately, not much infrastructure. So they got drying, but apart from that, most of the nuts come through to South Africa or get exported from the harbors in Mozambique and Tanzania. I think it's also important that we mention, because we keep getting questions on how are these tonnages reported. And I spoke with SAMAC as well. When we do either the projections for the year, the budgets, or we do at the end of the year the deliveries that were actually brought into South Africa, we report them as either product of South Africa or product from neighboring countries. So none of the product from neighboring countries is there in the figures for South Africa, and I think it's important that we remember that.
Yeah, so those neighbouring countries, as you say, in Southern Africa, will be reported in the others
In the
total
other department,
on this
yeah.
chart. Yeah. Ms. Chen, China, everyone's fascination in some way. We were talking about the production in Yunnan, which is the biggest growing area, and then some in Guangxi and some in Guangdong. So what is happening in Yunnan province currently? The trees are maybe mostly reaching, most of the plantings are heading into maturity about now, is that right? They may be 10 or 12 years old, some of those, the mass plantings that we saw in Yunnan?
Yes, because Yunnan, most of plantation we planted by 2030 to 2015, up to now, already more than 12 years old for the trees. Most of the tree come into the mature the age, so that is why we have a big figure. We have a big data for our production. But I have to say that our figure, our data, it's very roughly. It is original area. Now, maybe everybody can notice back to the Notting Show, and it's a big difference between ANC data, but ANC data is I think it is directly go to the marketing, the data. We are not against between each other, I think. So come back to the Yunnan province, yes, Yunnan province, we have a lot of the plantation, but we still have the long way to go because we have to improve our quality because there is a lot of the factor to impact to the supply, to promotion. For example, we have a lot of the variety and technology and the management and claims can impact for our production. On the other hand, in China, most of the farmer were planted and managed by individual grower. So it can have a large difference. Yeah. For the data, for the production in the China, yeah. Yunnan maybe for example, for the 2025, we forecast the production for the Yunnan about above the 100,000 metric tons, not in show. But for the Guangxi, also for the Yunnan province, we maybe forecast the production about 80,000 to 85,000 metric tons. In Guangxi, it is the second plantation, second plantation. It's the production about 50,000 metric tons to 20,000 metric tons. In Guangxi province, maybe they said that maybe they can get the 5,000 metric tons to 8,000 metric tons in Guangxi. Yeah.
Yes. And as we discussed, these are the high-level productive potential numbers, and there's always there's some slippage then before we get into the tradable, saleable commodity products.
Yeah, it is hard to me to speak more details around the China. Maybe I have some case. Let's talk about YMAC, our company, and some farmers in Yunnan. Yeah, just we mentioned in Yunnan, we have a lot. Our macadamia, most of the macadamia we planted on the mountains, and on the mountains we have the problem is water and soil erosion and manual harvest. We have to use the by hand to take the tree and pick up the nuts.
Yes.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's big challenge.
Yes. So I could just summarise what you've said, and from our conversations, the Chinese industry generally appears to be moving into a mature phase in terms of the age of the trees. The focus is now turning to quality improvement, because there's no point in producing a crop if it's not edible, or it's a poor quality crop. So we will see some expectation of a maturing of the industry generally in China over the next little while.
Yes, and I want to explain for another issues is that is why Yunnan macadamia industry have the big challenge for maintenance and individual grower. So that is why YMAC we organize the individual grower into the cooperative association to training them with the correct technology and management, and to buy the good quality and stable material from them. So we're training them. So I think maybe it takes a long time, but getting better.
Very good. Yeah, that's terrific to hear. So we better move on and talk about demand and consumption. But I'll make a brief comment on the Australian industry. There continues to be corporate level investment in planting in Australia. It's probably reaching the end of a wave of new investment but there's certainly more plantings happened in the north part of the country, in Queensland in particular. At the same time, as I mentioned before, we're seeing a decline in production in areas of New South Wales, not across the board by any means, but in the southern areas, we've probably got a crop decline which somewhat offsets the growth of younger trees. We're also seeing that older trees are less productive than we had expected them to be. So the productive rates per hectare in Australia are not hitting the numbers that we had generally intended. So I guess at this stage we're expecting to see continued growth, but at quite a modest level over the next few years. I guess to echo the comments that you made, Thomas, about the cost of labour, the difficulty of getting labour, the cost of infrastructure in Australia is horrendous. I think that's pretty much the case everywhere, and increasing compliance costs and restraint. So there are a number of things that mitigate against really dramatic expansion in our industry. We'll flip on now and talk about some of the key consumption demand factors for macadamias, and thanks to the Australian Macadamia Society for providing this information from the global data sources. This chart shows the imports of nut-in-shell to China from various origins, and the big black box is South Africa. So PJ, you've been dominating that trade, which is no surprise. It's probably more than 50% of the South African crop is going as in-shell to China or thereabouts.
Yeah, in 23 it was around about 60% of the crop, and last year about 50% of the crop. So it's come down, and obviously it has to do with what's more profitable, kernel or NIS, and the market moves accordingly. But as I said previously, a lot of the smaller processors are into NIS because it's quicker money, you don't need all the facilities, etc., etc. And therefore, yeah, a lot of product goes through as NIS. We'll talk about the kernel later.
Yeah. Mbugwa, the orange bar should disappear.
It should disappear. As I said, that window in 23-24 was just to kind of mop up from the field. Processors weren't able to really get in with the lack of market in those 2 years, or that oversupply. So I think it should fall off as you can't really see them before 23.
Yeah. And Ms. Chen, on the other end of the import side, when this 90,000 tonnes of nut-in-shell arrives in China, one of the common questions is what happens to it? You suggested to me that maybe 80% or the vast majority is sold as nut-in-shell. That market continues to be strong in China?
Yes. Now in China, nut-in-shell sales also still is the majority. More than 80%. More than 80% is for nut-in-shells. Yes, and then the coated and the non-coated kernel also is a product. But no matter the forms of the production, the quality is the key. If the quality is good and the price reasonable, I think the demand keep going.
Yeah. If we look at kernel imports to China, they've also been strong, particularly in the last 3 years. So Australia has historically been a strong supplier of kernel to China, and that's certainly assisted by our free trade arrangement with China. But in recent years, Africa and South Africa and Kenya have also been big shippers of kernel. You see that continuing, PJ?
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you look at the amount of NIS going into China, being turned into kernel, it's definitely increasing as well. I think we're moving away, especially the younger generation. They're moving away from doing NIS or eating them in the shell like they used to. They want to have the luxury of just dumping kernel into their mouths and getting the full effect. So, yes, I believe it's going to increase going forward, Richard, definitely.
So if we look at Europe now, the last 5 years has seen, you might say, steady, but with some growth in the last couple of years in particular. And again, South Africa and Kenya are very large contributors to that market. Guatemala as well has a significant contribution. So what are the driving factors in Europe, PJ?
Well, for us from South Africa, I mean, they're on the same time zone. It's just so much easier to do business with Europe, for starters. But they've been used to macadamias and nuts in general, but also macadamias for a long time. So I think, especially given the fact that the prices came down over the last couple of years, there was renewed interest. I remember, say, from 10 years ago when Germany, for instance, were taking quite a bit of macadamias, then started slacking. The sales are picking up, and we are once again becoming a very popular nut in Europe.
Mm-hmm. We've had some questions already come through in terms of the European ingredient market. So some question about what is the potential to grow the ingredient market in Europe. I don't know if you or any others on the panel have some thoughts on the potential market there. And oil was mentioned too as a potential avenue.
I think if we go for kernel firstly, we can talk about oil just now, but if you look at kernel, I think all nut types start with the wholes, the halves, the whatever, as snacking, and then as you go along, and I think pecans is the one that you can look at. You go into the US, you find pecans and almonds in whatever sizes, slithers, cubes, whatever, to go into certain ingredients. And I think for us, as we grow bigger and as we become more well-known and as we have more 5s and 6s that we need to get rid of, we will hopefully also be moving in that area. And definitely as we go forward, those are going to become more in demand, I believe.
Yeah, it seems as if supply is as much a problem as anything for the development of that market, particularly because we know it's only a small segment of the value stream, the ingredient product. So we probably have struggled as an industry to provide adequate supply.
I think also, just the flexibility of snacking. I mean, with the price fluctuations we've had in the last few years, product development is really taking a hit in Europe. I think we need to see more stability. It takes, I think, 3 to 5 years to get a product out on the shelves. Well, we know what happens in the macadamia industry in 3 to 5 years. So from our side as an industry, we just need to find a bit more stability for the Europeans to really go back into product development on the confectionery and other products.
Yeah, it's very hard to ask people to develop products without security of supply or confidence in supply. And I guess the overall picture that we are seeing in the industry generally is that there will be continued growth in South Africa, in East Africa, in China, in the Americas, and in Australia. We do expect to see continued growth year on year from here. There's now a substantial productive base of trees, notwithstanding the challenging factors. So we should see some steady growth in supply ongoing from here.
Now, Richard, I just believe, the price is also of crucial importance, eh? I mean, given the price over the last couple of years, it's so much easier to bring a macadamia into your cookie or whatever because it doesn't have such a marked effect. But where we were 5 years ago, it was a very expensive piece to push in there. So, I mean, all of a sudden, if we can keep the prices right about where they are now, I think there'll be a lot more development.
Yeah, the extreme volatility where price is really driven by shortage as opposed to the fundamental value of the product for its purpose, that's always a challenge. So looking at the US, this is maybe not the most exciting chart. So what happened in the US? So I always have in mind that it's a 12,000 tonne market, but it hasn't been for some time. I understand the US industry has probably been long on inventory for a while. There was a jump into the market in 22, possibly related to the dip in price. Things have been stable at the moment. What are we expecting to see from here, Thomas? What do you see?
I think, in the US, just like in Europe, it takes a while for products to start developing. These low prices with a couple of our customers, for example, have promoted a lot of innovation and new products. And so I do think coming forward, if we're able to get the supplyability and the stability in pricing, like Mbugo mentions, I do think we'll be able to get those products on the shelf and consistently available.
It seems like there's pent-up demand there. It's just waiting for the right offer, isn't it?
And I think confidence in the market and confidence of where the stability of the pricing and supplyability.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the 6-year average here, I think the worrying bit is the 23, 24 numbers. Yeah. And at some point they're going to jump back up to there. And at the moment, the US really isn't in the market, and that's a cause for concern in the third and fourth quarter, in my mind. But we hope to get lots of crop in so that we can bolster that and steady the market.
Yeah, there's a question just come through, I see, on in relation to the data, and the question is, why does the macadamia industry typically not report opening and closing stock levels? And we were we were joking earlier that's an interesting question, but we probably have reported our opening stock levels accurately this year as zero or something close to it. That real wave or surge in demand and consumption that followed the price dip from a couple of years ago, there was an extraordinary surge in consumption, and it's pretty much cleared out all of the origins as far as we know from our conversations. And yeah, just I guess a comment on where we're at in this cycle, probably reasonably heavily sold from the 2025 crop from around the origins from our conversations. Is that fair to say?
Fair to say.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I mean, I do think the notion of the tariff has caused a little bit of uncertainty, and that has allowed a couple other origins to be a little bit more aggressive, while some of the U.S. market has kind of slowed down and hesitated slightly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I also think the consumers have become more price sensitive. While the prices are where they are now, I think we get a good chance of selling out, and it'll continue like that. But if the prices start going up, and I could see it from China earlier this year as well, they are becoming extremely price sensitive.
Yeah. We've only got a few minutes to go, so what we might do now is just jump through some slides on promotion. This one, Ms. Chen, you shared some slides with us in the last few days on some kernel innovations, some flavoured products that are being sold mostly online, I think, but they're generating some real excitement for kernel consumption in China. Yes,
because in China, macadamia kernel is welcomed by more and more consumers from 0% to 20% now, and more and more young consumers they prefer the different taste and convenient and quick and directly the way to purchase. And now macadamia already changed in the beginning just for festival goods, now changed to snack. So there were a lot of the reason to choose macadamia daily life. So in China, China's consumer do not care about where macadamia come from. They just care about the experience in their mouth. Yeah, so that is why delicious taste and good quality and reasonable, I think maybe they are very important and can attractive to consumer.
Yes. So here are another couple of products that are new in the marketplace and generating some momentum. I'll just quickly move through these given the time constraints. And but I did want to dwell a moment on this one, which is a natural whole macadamia product that has been reported as the #1 seller on TikTok. I didn't know you could buy and sell things on TikTok, but apparently you can. But in China you can do anything. So it hit the #1 sales in TikTok for the reporting period. A kernel product, it outsold the nutting shell product for that period, that week, that month, whatever that reporting period was. So that's a real testament to the strength of demand. And I do think that Chinese innovation in this regard, I mean, it's simple innovation in a sense, but innovation and execution are so impressive that your market, your industry is able to produce cost effectively, to deliver efficiently, extraordinary distribution systems that you have available, developed in China, and you create a magnificent value proposition for the consumer. So I see that as a real example of how to drive consumption. just talking about the rest of the world in terms of promotion, I think the audience would be aware that the Australian macadamia industry has run a sophisticated marketing program for 30-odd years now. In the last couple of years, the global industry through the World Macadamia Organisation has developed a coordinated marketing program to run alongside that. The brand Love Macadamia has been developed to underpin global promotion of macadamias, and campaigns are being run in many major markets, or all major markets, you might say. I note Martha Stewart is now a fan of macadamias in the US. You can't do much better than that as an advocate. Obviously China remains or is a key target both for snacking product and also for ingredients. So work's been done with the manufacturing industry in China on product development and the ingredient sector. There's work also being done in Japan and in Korea, a lot driven through social media channels and focusing on health in Japan and more on celebration and indulgence in Korea. And then of course India, the brave new world for so many markets, and it's just it's almost a blank slate for macadamias. There's been a small quantity that's been traded there for some time, but it's really the sleeping tiger in the macadamia market, as it is for so many other nut products. It's and we see some very significant future demand developing in India over time. So it's some of the activities being undertaken in India. So in summary, despite expanded plantings, we only expect to see single-digit growth in macadamia production over the foreseeable future, and for the reasons that you've heard described, some agronomic, some weather-related, some social, some economic, some political. There are so many factors that always take the edge off what the theoretical growth might look like. Really encouragingly, there's the coordinated global marketing efforts are leading to better consumer awareness and more confidence in the trade. One of the things the industry's pushed very hard in the last couple of years is consistent messaging from all origins, and you can see what a disparate industry we are, spread across the world in so many different countries and cultures, and creating a consistent messaging is really important. So that sets us up well, I think, for selling the future crop and stimulating the demand to grow the macadamia industry into a much larger, more sophisticated and professional industry. Jose, you had a closing word for us.
Okay, with all these challenges, we are poets, or at least dreamers. And for all those dreamers, a little poem, Macadamia. In the taste of its nuts, you will find not just a wholesome treat. You will find the aphrodisiac macadamia. In the elegance of its crowns, you will find not just the scent of its flowers. You will find the song of your birds. In the trees that I have planted, you will find not just seeds. You will find the fruits of my dreams.
Fabulous. What better way to conclude our session, Eduardo? Thank you so much. That's brilliant. So thank you for your attention and interest, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our session. I'd like to thank my fellow panellists, Jose Eduardo, Thomas, Mbugua, Ms. Chen, and PJ. Thanks for the chat, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen.